Welcome to Whispers of History, where time slows, the torches flicker low, and ancient dust settles gently around your thoughts. Here we wander through the quiet corridors of the past, one sleepy story at a time. As if your pillow is ready and your brain could use a gentle deflation, you're in the right place. On tonight's tale, how Babylonian priests predicted the weather with sheep spleens. Yes, really. It's a journey through omens, incense, and organs. Before we begin, consider gently tapping that like button, don't wake the cat, and subscribe so these slow-moving stories find you again. As if you're still awake, let us know your local time and where you're listening from. It helps build our sleepy little village of time travelers. Now let's ease into tonight's journey. The sun is slow this morning, like honey refusing to leave the jar. You're standing on a wide stone platform in Babylon 3,000 years before the internet ruined attention spans and goats had full-time PR teams. The sky is heavy with orange light. It smells like dust and something strangely sweet, maybe figs, or maybe the incense some priest dropped 3 hours ago and is still pretending he meant to. You shift your sandals, which are impressively uncomfortable considering they're just bits of leather tied together with twine and hope. The city around you is humming. Not modern hustle. More like a low, thoughtful hum, markets setting up, donkeys complaining, temple boys sweeping courtyards with purpose that feels entirely ceremonial. As a pair of palm trees wave lazily behind you. One of them has a single bird sitting in it, squawking like it knows something you don't. It probably does. Everyone here seems to know something you don't. You're here on assignment. Not modern, click this Zoom link kind of assignment, but priestly duty, sacred work. You've been sent to observe a diviner, the type of man who can read the future, predict the king's fate, and yes, forecast the weather, with a sheep. You probably won't make it through this day. As a procession approaches, two young men, both looking far too awake for this hour, carry a bundle between them. It's wrapped in cloth, still warm. You don't have to ask what's inside. The sheep is brought to the temple courtyard where the waits. He's older than you thought, his face etched with lines that look more like ancient script than wrinkles. His robe is clean. His sandals are not. That feels important. As the ceremony begins, a hush falls. People who moments ago were shouting about onions and dates now stand in silence. There's reverence here, yes, but also performance. This is part religion, part statecraft, part very elaborate theater. And then the sheep, bless it, is the unwilling star. Now comes the moment of truth. The slices, opens, and lines in. Oh, you do not. Though the smell is immediate thick, you try not to breathe. The crowd leans forward. The priest lifts the organ of interest, the liver first, but his eyes are on the spleen. Oh yes, the spleen. According to Babylonian belief, the spleen holds omens of the winds. A swollen tip might signal dust storms. A concave belly could mean rain. A surprising dip in the left quadrant, locusts, or divine disapproval, or both. Historians still debate whether the priests actually believed all of this. or if it was just a handy way to scare kings into behaving. Though this speaks, his voice is low, cracked, but rich with finality. He sees shifting winds, perhaps a storm. The temple scribes nod and note it. Somewhere, an administrator starts considering grain storage adjustments. And just like that, the day's weather is decided by a spleen. You step back dazed. A child offers you a date sticky with honey. You eat it without thinking, it helps, sort of. Later, as the courtyard clears and the organ is buried. Yes, buried with prayers so the gods don't feel mocked. You find yourself lingering. There's a weird piece to it all. The ancient city, the dust, the rituals, even the sheep's short, mysterious career. So somehow, against all odds, this was a normal Tuesday. You're walking now, slowly, digesting both the date and the moment. The streets of Babylon are narrower here, winding between mud brick homes with windows like sleepy eyes. A breeze brushes past, carrying traces of cumin and maybe regret. A dog sniffs a broken jar, finds nothing, and sulks away like an unpaid philosopher. You pass a woman grinding grain. She looks up, offers no smile, but nods. That's practically a love letter around here. Somewhere behind her, a child yells about a missing sandal. You don't look. It's not your problem. Today, your problem is spleens, storms, and subtle politics. See, it turns out weather predictions aren't just for choosing whether to bring an umbrella. In Babylon, they were geopolitical tools. If the spleen says storm, the king might delay a march. If the spleen says sunshine, traders flood the city like pigeons on fresh bread. Now, today's ominous spleen forecast could mean canceled caravans. Or worse, the priest might have just subtly warned the king not to visit his third wife. Historians still debate whether spleen omens were coded political warnings or genuine attempts at meteorology. You round a corner and step into a plaza that smells overwhelmingly of clay. Wet clay, baked clay, broken clay. Babylon's version of a stationery store. Dozens of tablets lie on racks, drying like cookies in a very bureaucratic bakery. You duck into a small scribe's booth. It's low and shaded. Inside, a man is etching symbols into a tablet with intense focus, his tongue sticking out slightly, which ruins the whole mystical vibe. He's copying down omens. You read over his shoulder. If the spleen is forked and the sky is pale, the winds will turn south. If the liver is bloated and the dog howls at dusk, a foreign army approaches. It's oddly poetic and a little stressful. The scribe glances up. You're the new temple observer, right? You nod. Don't believe all of it, he whispers. But do believe some of it. He goes back to work without further explanation. You sit nearby, a clay tablet is handed to you. Blank, write your own omen, he says, start simple. You carve slowly like a child learning letters. It's harder than it looks. The stylus keeps slipping. Your symbols look like angry worms. Still, the act is meditative. Calming even. You're just a person sitting in ancient Babylon writing fake omens into drying mud, while the spleen-based fate of the kingdom wafts through the air like incense and sheep memories. A commotion rises outside, a small one. Someone's goat has escaped and is chewing on a priest's sandal. No one seems particularly bothered. It's not even the strangest thing to happen before lunch. You leave your tablet on the rack. No one will know it's yours. But maybe in some dusty archive 2 from now, someone will see your shaky symbols and wonder what they meant. They meant you were here, and for a moment you believed in the weather told by Spleens. And maybe, just maybe, it worked. It's a different day now, though not much different at all. The rhythm of Babylon hasn't changed. The stones still hum underfoot, the air is still thick with the smell of incense and sweat, and the sun is slowly making its way across the sky like it's got nowhere to be. You've come back to the temple, where the priests stand in quiet clusters, their faces painted with the same serene concentration. It's like they've all figured something out that you haven't yet. Maybe it's the sheep, or the spleen, or maybe it's just the fact that they've spent a lifetime convincing themselves that the universe speaks in symbols and they've got the right decoder ring. And today, the priests are gathered around the same altar, only this time there's something different in the air. No sheep, no stomachs sliced open, there's only a bowl. And that's when you realize this is the calm before the storm, or perhaps the storm is the bowl. They dip their hands into the cool water and pull out tiny pieces of clay, each inscribed with symbols. These little tablets are less formal than the large ones, but they're still heavy with meaning. One priest holds the bowl aloft, its contents swaying in the light, casting a reflection like 1,000 winking stars. Someone who might be an apprentice steps forward. He whispers something into the bowl. His voice isn't loud, but there's a hush in the air, like a secret between the wind and the water. He's reading the water, and it's not as strange as it sounds. You've heard that some cultures believe water holds the answers to everything. The Babylonians believed it too. A ripple disturbs the surface of the water, and you can't help but hold your breath. The scribe standing beside you shifts uncomfortably, as though he's expecting something important to happen. You try to follow the ritual, squinting at the water, searching for meaning in the subtle waves. The priest murmurs something you can't quite make out. His fingers dance along the surface, interpreting something only he seems to see. There's a tense energy in the air now. What if the spleen didn't predict the weather right this time? Would they have to turn to the stars, or worse, interpret the dreams of the king's concubine? It's a small, fleeting moment, a soundless exchange between the water and the priest. And then, just like that, he steps back, satisfied, as if the world itself has told him its secrets. You must learn the signs, the scribe says to you, his voice both weary and enlightened. They don't come easy. The gods speak in riddles, and the land is their canvas. You nod, uncertain, watching as the water settles back into its placid state. The bowl returns to the altar. Another priest walks by, and this time you notice the difference. His face is tight, his eyes uncertain. You can see it clearly now. The priesthood is not just about seeing the future, it's about controlling it, and there is power in that, there is peace in that. And yet there is also pressure. If the gods are so mercurial, so quick to withhold their favor, what kind of life is it to wait, to pray, to read a sheep's spleen and hope for the best? Yet historians still debate whether this ritual was merely an act of spiritual devotion or a form of governance, a method for those in power to keep the common people in check. Did the priests genuinely believe in their ability to interpret the divine, or was it just another tool of control? As the temple empties and the sound of sandals shuffles away, the calm settles again. The air feels lighter, but you can't shake the weight of what's been happening here. You think back to that sheep. Its spleen didn't just predict the weather, it forecasted life. And with that, a flicker of doubt crosses your mind. What if they've all been wrong this whole time? What if they've been chasing shadows and calling it prophecy? But you can't ask the priests. Not here, not now. Maybe one day, after the day's work is done and the evening sun casts long shadows over the city, someone might tell you the truth. But for now, you have to wait, just like the rest of them. You've left the temple grounds behind, and the world outside feels entirely different. The streets, still buzzing with the hum of Babylon, now seem full of tiny details you hadn't noticed before. The way the sun catches the edge of a trader's cart, the slow rhythm of a donkey's hooves as it drags a heavy load, and the distant murmur of children playing by the river. You don't know why, but everything feels more significant now. Even the smallest movements, like the shifting of the wind or the way a fly hovers over a piece of bread, seem loaded with meaning. You can almost hear the whispers of the gods in the air, their voices carried on the breeze just beyond your reach. But that's how it works here, isn't it? The gods don't speak directly. They speak in signs, in symbols, in moments that might go unnoticed if you're not careful. The Babylonians have figured out how to read them. They've trained themselves to see the invisible threads that connect all things. They know that the way the wind blows today could decide the future of an entire nation. And if you can read that, you can control the future itself. It makes you think how much of the world is like this. A world where meaning is hidden just out of sight. A world where even the smallest detail, an animal's spleen, a ripple in a bowl of water, can turn the course of history. As you walk through the marketplace, you're not really looking at the people or the goods being sold. You're listening to the silence between the noises. You're sensing the shifts in the air, the subtle changes in the way people move. And it makes you realize that Babylon, for all its grandeur, is just like the rest of the world. It's a place where people are constantly trying to understand the world around them, to find patterns, to make sense of the chaos. And they've got their own ways of doing it. Ways that are so old, so buried in the soil of the earth, that even now, after all these centuries, they still echo through the streets, carried on the whispers of the wind. Historians still debate how much of Babylon's greatness rested on these methods of divination, and how much of it was simply the momentum of empire. Did the priest's ability to predict the weather really shape the empire's fate, or was it just an illusion? But for now, you can't help but feel that strange, unshakable sense of certainty that runs through the city like a current. The people here may not have all the answers, but they've figured out how to listen for them. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough. The sun is lower now, just a sliver of gold on the horizon, and Babylon is starting to slip into its evening routine. The city hums with a different energy now, quieter, more intimate. It's as if the streets are holding their breath, waiting for something to happen. There's a certain calm in the air, the kind that comes just before the night settles fully into place. You find yourself walking down a narrow alleyway, your steps echoing softly against the mud walls. The faint smell of burning incense lingers in the air, mixing with the scent of food, rich stews, freshly baked bread, and the unmistakable aroma of roasted meat. Your stomach rumbles, but you push it away, lost in thought. There's something hypnotic about this city, something that lures you in and makes you forget the outside world. Ahead, the faint glow of a lantern catches your eye. It's flickering, struggling against the growing darkness, and you approach it. A woman stands by the flame, her face shadowed by the light. She's muttering softly to herself, her hands moving in a rhythmic pattern over a small clay bowl. There's something ceremonial about her movements, but it's not the same kind of ritual you saw at the temple earlier. It feels more personal, more intimate, as though she's trying to communicate with something much closer, something within her, or perhaps within the earth itself. You watch for a moment, wondering if you should interrupt, but she doesn't notice you, absorbed in her task. Finally, she looks up, her eyes locking with yours. There's no surprise, no curiosity, just an understanding, as though she knew you were there all along. "Oh, the winds shift tonight," she says, her voice low and steady. "Not just in the sky, but in the hearts of men." You're not sure how to respond. She offers no further explanation, but you feel the weight of her words settle into the space between you. She doesn't wait for you to speak, turning back to her bowl, her fingers continuing their delicate dance over the surface. You find yourself standing there for a while, contemplating the strange feeling that her words have left behind. Historians still debate the significance of women in Babylonian rituals. Were they simply silent observers, or were they perhaps the ones who held the truest connection to the divine? Did their own omens and interpretations, far less recorded than those of their male counterparts, carry as much weight in the daily life of the empire? You turn away, deciding that the night has a way of swallowing up the answers to these questions. As you continue down the alley, the city's sounds begin to shift again. The murmur of voices grows quieter, the clink of pottery and metal softer. It's as if the day is winding down and the people of Babylon are preparing to settle into their homes, to rest before the next day begins. The streets are darker now, the last light of day fading into shadows. The stars above seem to shine brighter, as if they too are waiting for something, watching the world below with silent patience. You can't help but wonder what tomorrow will bring. Will it be another sheep and its spleen, another reading of the water, another ominous prediction of the winds? Or will it be something different, something entirely unexpected, like the quiet woman with the lantern and her cryptic words. The uncertainty is what makes Babylon so compelling. The city feels alive with possibility, and yet it's impossible to ignore the weight of its history, the pressure of those who came before you. You're just one of many walking these streets, listening to the whispers of the past, trying to make sense of the patterns that have been etched into the earth for. You reach the end of the alley and step into a larger square, the night air cool against your skin. In the center of the square, a statue stands, worn with age but still imposing. It's of a man, perhaps a king, perhaps a god, and he gazes down at you with an expression of eternal authority. The square is empty now save for the few stray dogs who wander lazily between the stone columns. You pause, taking in the scene. It's strange, really. Babylon feels like a city frozen in time. Everything is both ancient and new. The buildings, the people, the rituals, they're all connected by a thread that stretches back thousands of years, yet there's a sense of life here, of something still unfolding. You sit on the stone steps of the square, watching as the last light of day fades. The city's hum seems to slow, the rhythm of Babylon winding down for the night. The stars above you sparkle with a quiet intensity, and the wind picks up slightly, carrying with it the scent of something far off, something you can't quite name. Historians still debate whether the Babylonians truly believed they were reading the will of the gods, or if they simply used their rituals as a way to control the flow of their empire. Were the priests sincere in their practices, or was it all just a form of governance, a method of calming a restless populace by giving them something to believe in? It's a question you may never answer. But as you sit there, surrounded by the weight of history, you can't help but feel a deep, almost tangible connection to the past. The people of Babylon, their rituals, their beliefs, their obsessions, they all seem to live on in the city, whispering through the cracks in the stones, through the murmurs of the crowd, through the flicker of lantern light. And somewhere in the depths of the night, the night seems to stretch on forever. The moon hangs low in the sky, a silver crescent that barely lights the path ahead. You've wandered through the quiet streets, unsure of where you're going, but finding comfort in the stillness around you. The city that once felt so alive now seems empty, as though the heart of Babylon has slipped away, leaving only the shadows. You find yourself at the edge of the river, the Euphrates stretching out before you, its surface dark and smooth like black glass. The water flows slowly, endlessly, carrying with it the stories of those who came before. There's something hypnotic about the river. It's always been there, winding its way through the city, shaping the lives of those who have lived and died along its banks. You sit down on the riverbank, dipping your fingers into the cool water. The current moves around you, indifferent but comforting. The river has seen it all, the rise and fall of kings, the shifting of empires, the birth and death of civilizations. It's been here longer than you, longer than anyone, and it will continue to flow long after you're gone. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the sound of the water fill your mind. It's peaceful here, away from the hustle of the city. Here by the river, there are no omens, no sheep, no priests reading the weather in organs. There's just the river, steady and unyielding. But even here, there's a feeling that the past is never truly gone. You can almost hear the voices of the people who have stood in this same spot, gazing out at the water, wondering what the future holds. The weight of their lives, their decisions, hangs in the air like the scent of wet earth. Historians still debate how much of Babylon's history has been lost to time, and how much remains hidden beneath the surface, waiting to be uncovered. How much of the past is truly gone, and how much of it still echoes through the present. As you sit by the river, you realize that you may never know, but you're not in a hurry. For tonight, at least, the world is quiet and the river's steady flow is all the answer you need. The stars above are starting to twinkle, each one a tiny flicker of light in the vast stretch of night. The river continues its slow journey beneath you, a quiet, eternal companion. You stand, dusting off your robe, and take one last look at the Euphrates, the only thing in Babylon that seems as old as the city itself. It's a reminder that, despite everything, the spleens, the omens, the priests, life continues in its own rhythm, unaffected by the petty anxieties of man. As you turn to leave, the air shifts again, like a subtle breeze stirring the pages of a forgotten book. There's a noise, footsteps behind you, and you know instantly that it's not just the wind. You don't need to look to know who it is. You've been here long enough now to recognize the sounds of Babylon's night. You turn to find a man approaching. His robes are simple, unadorned, but his face is stern, set with the kind of expression that seems to belong to someone who's seen too much to be surprised by anything anymore. He pauses in front of you, not speaking at first, as though testing whether you'll say something first. The moonlight catches his eyes, revealing a depth in them, tired, thoughtful, perhaps even a little lost. "Oh, you're not from here," he says, his voice not unfriendly but flat, resigned. You glance at him, feeling the weight of his words. It's not the first time someone noticed you don't belong. It's easy to forget that in a place like Babylon, everyone has a place. No one is ever truly anonymous. "Neither are you," you respond, your voice carrying the same weight of truth. Oh, he gives a short laugh, a sound that's more like a sigh. "I suppose not, but I know this city better than anyone." He gestures to the skyline, the buildings that rise like jagged teeth against the horizon. "And I can tell you it's not what it seems." You raise an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" He looks away, his gaze lost in the distance, and for a moment it seems like he might speak, but the words don't come. Instead, he takes a deep breath, his shoulders sagging slightly under some invisible burden. "It's all built on the same thing," he says quietly, almost to himself. "The gods, the priests, the kings, they all rely on the same things: power, control, omens, the sheep, the water, the stars. It's all just a system to keep things moving." He turns back to face you and his eyes are intense now. But what if it's wrong? You consider his words for a moment, unsure of how to respond. His questions hang in the air between you, thick and unspoken. Could it all be wrong? The predictions, the rituals, the constant search for signs. What if they were just human constructs, shadows cast on the walls of an ancient cave, nothing more than elaborate games to explain the chaos of life? Before you can answer, the man turns away, his footsteps soft but sure in the night. Maybe you'll understand one day, he says without looking back. Or maybe you won't, but one thing for sure. The river keeps flowing and the stars keep shining, and we just keep walking. And with that, he disappears into the darkness, his figure swallowed by the endless night of Babylon. You stand there for a moment, the weight of his words pressing down on you like a stone. Perhaps he's right. Perhaps the rituals, the predictions, the quest for meaning, all of it is just part of the human condition. We search for answers, for signs, for patterns in the chaos of life. But maybe in the end, we're just walking. And yet something in his voice lingers, a question that you can't shake. Maybe it's not enough to just walk. Maybe you have to listen. You continue your journey through the city, the moonlight now casting long shadows on the walls of the buildings around you. The air is cooler, but the city's pulse is still strong, even in the dead of night. Babylon is a place that never truly sleeps, and you can feel it in the way the streets hum with life, even when there's no one there. As you walk, your mind keeps returning to the stranger's words. What if it's wrong? The question keeps echoing, reverberating in your mind like a pebble dropped in still water. It's a small thing, but it spreads. The more you think about it, the more you realize that Babylon, its grandeur, its rituals, its divine prophecies, rests on the fragile belief that the world can be understood through symbols, signs, and patterns. But what if those patterns do exist? What if the signs we seek are only reflections of our own desires to control the uncontrollable? And yet, despite the doubts that gnaw at the edges of your thoughts, Babylon's power still feels tangible. The weight of its history, its culture, its faith. You can't ignore it, not when it's all around you, pressing in on every side. You reach the foot of a great ziggurat, its stone steps rising before you like the face of a mountain. The climb is steep, but you've done it before many times. The priests and scribes walk these steps daily, ascending to the top where the gods are said to reside, where the answers to life's greatest mysteries are whispered in the wind. As you ascend, you think back to the first time you stood here, gazing up at the massive structure. The first time you saw the city from this height and understood, in a way that was almost physical, how vast Babylon truly is. It's a city built to impress, to awe, to remind every person who enters its gates that they are small in the grand scheme of things, and that the power of the gods is absolute. You reach the top, your breath coming a little quicker now, but you're used to the climb. You look out over the city, your gaze sweeping across the sprawling expanse of Babylon with its towering walls, its bustling markets, its temples and gardens. The view is breathtaking, but tonight it's different. You can feel the weight of the city pressing down on you, as though the very stones beneath your feet are alive with the power of centuries. It's here at the top of the ziggurat that the priests perform their most sacred rituals. Here, where the air feels thinner, the wind colder, they attempt to commune with the gods to understand the mysteries of the universe. The gods that have shaped Babylon, that have guided its rise to power, and that have left their mark on everything from the rise of kings to the flight of birds. It is here that they seek answers just as you've been seeking them. Historians still debate how much of the ziggurat's purpose was truly religious, and how much was tied to Babylon's political structure. Was it a temple to the gods, or was it a monument to power? Did the priests believe they were speaking directly to the divine, or were they simply reinforcing the authority of the empire? As you stand there gazing out over the city, you can't help but wonder if the answers you're seeking are as elusive as the wind itself. Maybe the gods are just a story, a symbol, a way for people to make sense of a world that is inherently chaotic. But maybe, just maybe, there's something more to it than that. Something deeper, something that only the priests and the people of Babylon truly understand. The night is growing colder, and you feel the first stirrings of fatigue in your limbs. You know it's time to descend, but you linger a moment longer, letting the cool air wash over you. As you turn to leave, you catch a glimpse of something, a flicker in the distance, a shadow moving across the city's skyline. It's just a momentary glimpse, but it feels significant somehow. Something is coming. Something is about to change. Historians still debate the true purpose of the ziggurat in Babylon. Was it simply a place of worship, or was it a symbol of the power that the priests held over the people? And what did the gods really think of their empire? Were they benevolent guides, or were they indifferent observers? For now, though, you can only watch as the shadow fades into the night, and the city of Babylon settles into its deep, restless sleep. The city is alive with the sounds of night, but there's something new now, something that wasn't there before. The air feels heavy, thick with anticipation, and the usual hum of Babylon has taken on a slightly different tone. The city is settling into its nighttime rhythm, but you can feel the undercurrent of something else, a quiet restlessness that refuses to be ignored. As you descend from the ziggurat, the weight of the city's silence surrounds you. Even the animals seem still tonight, their usual chatter muted by the oppressive air. You can't quite place it, but something's off. The winds, for one, are restless tonight, shifting directions more than usual, as though they can't decide what to do. You reach the bottom of the great steps, your feet brushing against the worn stones, and pause for a moment to look back up at the ziggurat. From here, the monument is more imposing than ever, its sheer scale by the dim light of the moon. The top of the structure is now lost to the darkness, swallowed by the night, and you can't help but think of the priests, those men who spend their days and nights atop that sacred mountain, interpreting the will of the gods, trying to decipher the messages the universe sends. But as you stare up at the ziggurat, you're struck by a sudden, unsettling thought. What if they're wrong? What if they've been misreading the signs all along? The thought lingers, turning over in your mind like a stone you can't shake. You know you can't ask the priests about this, not directly, not now. But there's a flicker of doubt, of uncertainty that's begun to gnaw at you. Is the city truly under the gods' guidance, or have the priests simply created their own narrative, their own version of fate? As historians still debate the true nature of Babylonian priesthood. Was their authority genuinely divine, or was it constructed for political power? Was the ziggurat merely a grand temple, or was it a tool of control? An instrument to keep the people in line, to make them believe that their rulers had a divine mandate. As you step away from the ziggurat, you feel the weight of these questions pressing down on you, the silence of the night seeming to amplify them. You're not sure where to go from here, but you know you can't stop thinking about the world of omens, the priests, the sheep's spleens, and the river of fate that flows through it all. The streets ahead are still, the occasional flicker of a lantern casting long shadows against the walls of the houses. You walk on, your footsteps muffled by the dust, but there's a sense of urgency now, something that makes you move faster, as though the city is calling you forward. As you round a corner, you see a familiar face in the distance. It's the scribe you met earlier, the one who had spoken to you about the omens. He's standing outside a small building, his posture tense, his eyes scanning the street. He catches sight of you and motions you over. "I'll come," he says, his voice barely above a whisper. "There's something you need to see." You follow him inside, the small room dimly lit by a single lantern. The air is thick with the scent of ink and parchment, and the scribe quickly shuts the door behind you. "What happened?" you ask, your voice low, wary. The scribe doesn't answer immediately. He's packing now, his mind clearly elsewhere. When he does speak, his voice is strained, as if he's trying to make sense of something that's just beyond his reach. "The omens," he says slowly, they're changing." You blink, unsure of what he means. The omens, they've always been steady, predictable until now. "What do you mean?" He stops packing, his eyes meeting yours. "The sheep, the liver readings, they've been off, and the water readings, they don't make sense anymore. The signs are shifting, I don't know what it means, but it's as if the gods are upset." The words hang heavy in the air between you. The gods upset. What could possibly cause such a thing? Was it the political turmoil in the city, a shifting of alliances, or was it something deeper, something fundamental? Historians still debate what it was that caused the downfall of Babylon. Was it an external force, an invading army, or was it internal, the slow erosion of faith in the priesthood, the shifting of omens and signs that once held the empire together? The scribe's voice pulls you back to the present. "We need to find out what's happening," he says, his tone urgent. "If the omens are wrong, everything could change." You stand there for a moment, the weight of his words pressing in on you. The city is vast, but the world is small tonight. The shifting winds, the restless waters, the restless hearts of the people, they all seem to be whispering something, but you can't quite make it out. There's a change coming, that much is certain. But what kind of change, and what role will you play in it? The scribe leads you to a small table in the corner of the room where several clay tablets are laid out. They are covered in symbols you recognize, omens, predictions, readings of sheep's entrails and the water's surface. But as you look closer, you can see the difference. The symbols are crooked, the lines shaky. Something is off. The signs are failing. "We need to go to the temple," the scribe says, his voice tight. "The priests will have answers." The journey to the temple feels different tonight. The air is thick, almost oppressive, as if the entire city is holding its breath. The streets that were once familiar now seem foreign, the paths winding in ways that don't quite make sense. You've walked these streets before, but tonight everything feels strange. The light from the lanterns flickers as if struggling to hold on to its last bit of life. The shadows stretch unnaturally long, as though they, too, are unsure of their place in the world. The scribe walks ahead of you, his pace quick, but there's a tension in his shoulders. He knows what's coming. He knows that the city is about to be tested in ways it hasn't been in centuries. And he knows that if the omens fail, everything could unravel. The priests might be the only ones who can interpret the signs, but what if even they are wrong? You reach the gates of the temple, where the heavy wooden doors stand closed, silent, as though they too are waiting for something. The scribe hesitates for a moment before knocking. There's a long pause before a figure appears at the door, a tall man, his face shadowed, his expression unreadable. "Well, what happened?" you ask immediately, your voice low, urgent. The man's eyes flick over you and then to the scribe, who nods. Without a word, the man steps aside, allowing you both to enter. Inside, the temple is dimly lit, the flickering candles casting strange shadows on the walls. The high priest stands at the altar, his back to you, his hands raised in silent prayer. He doesn't turn when you enter, as though he already knows you're here. "Oh, the omens," the scribe says, his voice trembling slightly. "They've been wrong. What's happening?" Though the high priest turns, his expression grave. "The gods are silent," he says simply. "And when the gods are silent, we must listen closely." You feel the weight of his words in your bones. Something is happening in Babylon, something that goes beyond the control of the priests and the kings. Something is shifting beneath the surface. Historians still debate the true reasons behind Babylon's fall. Was it a sudden invasion, a shift in power, or was it simply the gods' silence, the absence of omens, that led the empire to crumble? But tonight, standing in the temple, you realize that the answer may not lie in the past at all. It may lie in the silence, the space between the signs, the absence of meaning where once there was certainty. Though the high priest lowers his hands, his gaze turning inward. "We wait," he says softly, "and listen." And so you wait too, listening to the silence, to the shift. The silence in the temple is almost suffocating. The flickering candlelight casts long shadows across the stone floor, and the air feels heavy with anticipation. You and the scribe stand motionless, watching the high priest as he turns his attention to the altar once more. He's deep in thought, his hands still, but his mind seemingly elsewhere, communing with something that's beyond your understanding. Though the scribe steps forward, his voice barely a whisper. "High priest, what do the gods say? The omens, they've failed us. Are we to turn to them now for guidance?" The priest doesn't immediately respond. He seems lost in his own thoughts, as if waiting for something to emerge from the stillness around him. His eyes flicker to the small statue of a god resting upon the altar. The figurine is weathered, worn by centuries of devotion, but its presence is powerful. It's a reminder that Babylon's strength was built on faith, on the unwavering belief that the gods walked among them. He takes a deep breath, his shoulders rising and falling slowly as though drawing strength from the air itself. The gods are always watching, he says finally, his voice low, almost too calm. They do not speak when they are displeased. The silence is a message of its own, but it is not one we understand yet. You glance at the scribe, whose face has turned pale with worry. The priest's words have done little to quell the unease that has settled over you both. The omens were meant to provide guidance, a sense of direction, and now the signs have failed. The gods themselves are silent. Though the scribe steps closer, his voice shaking with the urgency of the moment. But what does that mean? The sheep, the signs, they were our way to understand the future. Without them, we are lost. Though the high priest raises a hand, signaling for silence. His eyes close briefly as though he's listening for something. Then slowly he speaks again, his voice carrying a sense of finality. The gods are testing us, he says, his words weighed with an ancient knowledge. They are testing our faith, our resolve. This silence is not an end, but a beginning. The omens have failed because we have come to rely on them too much. The gods do not speak through sheep's entrails alone. We must seek the deeper truth beyond the rituals, beyond the signs. You feel the tension in the air shift. It's as if the very stones of the temple are vibrating with a hidden energy, a pulse that has been dormant for too long. There's something in the priest's words that stirs a long-forgotten memory in your mind. You remember a time back in your homeland when the gods weren't spoken of so often, but their presence was felt in every aspect of life. The way the seasons changed, the way the land responded to the rains. Perhaps the priests of Babylon had forgotten that. Perhaps they had become too reliant on their rituals, their formulas, and their signs that they had stopped listening to the more subtle cues that the world itself offered. The gods were not just in the spleens and the livers. They were in the air, in the earth, in the water, in the very fabric of existence. The high priest's gaze meets yours, and for a brief moment you feel a connection to something far greater than yourself. It's as though the weight of Babylon's history, its glory and its downfall, are all coalescing in this moment, and you are part of it. You are standing at the crossroads of a civilization that has believed in its own invincibility for so long, and yet now faces a challenge it may not be able to overcome. Historians still debate what led to the fall of Babylon. Was it the over-reliance on omens? Was it the political machinations of the ruling class? Or was it simply the gods turning their backs on a city that had forgotten how to listen to the world around it? You must leave the temple now, the priest says suddenly, his voice startling you out of your reverie. There is no more guidance here tonight. The gods have spoken through their silence. It is up to you to listen. Without waiting for a response, the priest turns back to the altar, his fingers tracing the surface of the stone, deep in contemplation. The scribe looks at you, his face pale, and then nods. It's time to leave. You follow him out of the temple, the heavy wooden doors closing behind you with a finality that sends a shiver down your spine. The streets of Babylon are eerily quiet, the usual sounds of the city muted as if the night itself has drawn a breath and held it. The air is still, the wind not daring to move. As you walk through the silent streets, the weight of the priest's words lingers in your mind. It is up to you to listen. But listen to what? The wind, the river, the faintest tremor in the earth beneath your feet. Or was there something more you were missing, something buried in the very essence of Babylon itself, waiting to be uncovered? You don't know yet, but you feel that tonight something is about to change. The city feels alive with the promise of something unknown, and you, like everyone else, are caught in its current. As the night drags on, stretching out like a dark river, its currents carrying you farther from the temple and into the heart of Babylon itself. You're not sure where you're going anymore. You're not even sure why you're walking. But something inside you tells you that you need to be moving, that you need to be on the move before the world around you shifts in ways you can't yet understand. The city around you seems to be holding its breath just like you. The silence is deep, unnerving. There's no laughter in the streets, no cries of children or bartering in the marketplace. Even the dogs are quiet tonight, their usual barking replaced by the occasional distant howl. You pass by a small alleyway, the faint glow of a lantern flickering inside. You pause, feeling an odd pull toward it. Maybe it's the silence that draws you in, or maybe it's just the need to make sense of the chaos that has enveloped Babylon tonight. You step closer, peering around the corner to find an old man sitting by the lantern, his face obscured by shadows. He's humming to himself, a soft, tuneless melody that seems oddly familiar. You approach cautiously, your footsteps barely audible on the stone ground. The old man doesn't look up at first, but when you're only a few paces away, he stops humming. His head lifts slightly, his eyes catching the dim light. He stares at you for a long moment and then speaks, his voice low but clear. They're coming, he says, as though he's been waiting for you all along. While you hesitate, who is coming? The old man doesn't respond immediately. Instead, he looks back down at his hands, which are clasped together in his lap, worn and weathered from years of toil. After a long pause, he speaks again, his voice softer now. The gods are watching. They've been silent for too long. But when they speak again, it won't be in sheep's entrails or water's surface. It will be in fire and wind. His words hang in the air, heavy with an unseen meaning. You feel a chill run down your spine, but you don't know why. The old man's gaze shifts and he looks at you with a knowing expression, as though he sees something in you that you haven't yet discovered for yourself. The gods are changing the world, he says, his voice fading into the night. And they're changing you. You turn to leave, but something in his words lingers. You're not sure if they're a warning or a prophecy. You're not sure if the old man is just another voice in a city full of whispers, or if he's telling you something that will change everything. The wind stirs for the first time tonight and the city's silence is broken. But what will follow? Historians still debate whether the silence of the gods in Babylon was ever truly broken. Did the empire crumble because the people lost faith in their omens, or was it the gods themselves who turned away? You don't know yet, but you have a feeling that by morning, everything will change. The wind picks up, and with it, a feeling of unease stirs within you. It's as though the air itself is pregnant with possibility, carrying something heavy and imminent. You find yourself walking faster now, urged forward by an invisible force. The city seems to stretch endlessly ahead, the faint glow of lanterns guiding your path, but each step feels like it leads you deeper into the heart of something you don't fully understand. You glance around, but the streets of Babylon are as empty as they've been all night. Not a soul in sight. It's strange, really. This city, once so full of life, now feels like an empty shell. Even the shadows seem to hang motionless, as though they too are holding their breaths. Your thoughts keep returning to the old man. His words still echo in your mind, but they don't offer comfort. The gods are changing the world, and they're changing you. You don't know why, but you feel a deep sense of urgency. There's a shift happening, a change in the air that you can't ignore. The silence, the oppressive, expectant silence that has settled over Babylon feels like the calm before a storm. Suddenly, there's a flash of light in the distance, followed by a low rumble, almost like a distant thunderclap. It's not a sound you're used to hearing in Babylon, and it makes you pause. The air vibrates with energy, and for a moment you wonder if you're the only one who feels it. You start walking faster now, your heart quickening as the sound of the distant rumble grows louder. It's not thunder, it's something else, something deeper, more unsettling. As you reach the city's gates, the sound is unmistakable. The wind howls, bending the trees and rattling the walls of the city. And then the rain comes. It starts as a light drizzle, but within moments it turns into a torrential downpour, flooding the streets, turning the dirt into a slick, slippery mess. The sky above you is dark, the moon obscured by thick clouds, and you're left with only the chaotic sounds of the storm and the rush of water around you. You can hear shouts in the distance, the hurried footsteps of people trying to take shelter from the storm, but the city seems almost desolate now. The streets, once full of life, are now drenched and empty, save for the occasional figure stumbling through the downpour. You make your way to a nearby building, seeking shelter from the storm, but the rain shows no sign of letting up. It's as if the city itself is being washed clean, as though some force beyond your control is purging Babylon of its sins. It's then that you realize the omens have returned, but this is not the reign of the gods' favor. This is something different. This is a sign that the gods are angry, that they've waited too long, and now they are making their presence known. Historians still debate whether Babylon's ultimate destruction was the result of divine wrath or simply the inevitable decline of an empire that had become too complacent. But tonight, you can feel it in your bones. Something is changing. And Babylon, for all its grandeur, is powerless in the face of it. The storm rages outside, its fury unmatched. You're huddled inside the shelter of an old merchant's house, the walls creaking under the strain of the wind and rain. The air inside the building is thick with dampness, the scent of wet earth and wood mingling in the cramped space. You're not sure how long you've been here, hours, maybe longer, but the storm shows no sign of abating. If anything, it seems to be growing stronger, more violent with every passing moment. Through the small window, you can see flashes of lightning streaking across the sky, illuminating the city in brief, jagged bursts. The streets are flooded now, the water rising steadily, creeping closer to the building's foundation. There's a sense of urgency in the air, as though the storm is a warning, a precursor to something even more devastating. You sit in silence, listening to the howling wind, the deafening crack of thunder, and the soft rhythm of the rain hitting the walls. You can hear voices outside now, the faint shouts of people trying to make their way through the flooded streets, seeking shelter or safety from the storm. But their voices are distant, drowned out by the relentless roar of the wind. You feel trapped, helpless in the face of it all. The storm seems to have swallowed the city whole, and with it, any sense of control. You can't help but wonder, what does it mean? Why is this happening now, at this moment in time, when Babylon's greatest priests and kings are supposed to have the favor of the gods? Though the scribe's words come back to you, the gods are silent. And when they speak again, it won't be in sheep's entrails or water's surface. It will be in fire and wind. And now you understand. This is the fire and wind. This is the God's anger made manifest. Historians still debate the true cause of Babylon's eventual fall. Some say it was the failure of its rulers to heed the omens. Others claim it was the collapse of its economic systems. But perhaps there's another explanation, one that rests in the very bones of the city itself. Perhaps Babylon fell not because of external forces, but because it ignored the signs, because it forgot the gods, and because it allowed itself to become complacent. You sit in the darkened room, the storm raging outside, and you wonder if you too have been complacent. Have you ignored the signs? Have you failed to see what's been right in front of you all along? The wind howls louder now, rattling the windows, and for the first time you feel the weight of it. The weight of the storm, of the city, of the gods' silent judgment. It's as if the very air around you is tightening, closing in, and there's no way out. You hear the door creak open behind you, and you turn to see the scribe standing there, his face pale and soaked with rain. His eyes are wide, and there's a look of terror in them that you've never seen before. "It's begun," he says, his voice trembling. "The gods, they've broken their silence, and Babylon is no longer safe." You don't need to ask what he means. The storm outside, the rising floodwaters, the tension in the air, it's all part of it. The gods have spoken, and Babylon is no longer the city it once was. You follow the scribe outside, your feet sinking into the mud as you step into the chaos. The storm is relentless, the water now up to your ankles, and yet you can feel something shifting in the city. The ground beneath you seems to tremble, as though the earth itself is preparing for something unimaginable. You hear the sound of drums in the distance, loud, rhythmic, a primal beat that reverberates through the air. The people of Babylon are gathering, their voices rising in unison, calling out to the gods for mercy. The priesthood is gathering too, though their robes are soaked and their faces drawn with fear. They too understand that something has changed. Something is happening that they cannot control. Though the city is changing, the gods are changing, and you are caught in the middle of it, uncertain of what comes next. Historians still debate the role of the priesthood in Babylon's collapse. Did they truly believe in the omens they interpreted, or were they merely servants of a broken system? Did they know what was coming, or were they as powerless as the rest of the city? As you stand in the flooded streets of Babylon, watching the storm tear through the city, you realize that the answers may never come. The gods have spoken, but the meaning of their words is still unclear. Babylon will either rise from the ashes or it will fall. And you, like everyone else, must wait to see which path the gods choose. As the night stretches on, the storm showing no sign of abating. The city of Babylon is caught in its grip, the wind howling through the narrow streets and the flood waters rising, inching their way closer to swallowing the buildings whole. The cries of the people echo in the distance, but they are faint and almost lost beneath the deafening roar of the storm. You follow the scribe as he leads you through the streets, his face a mask of both fear and determination. There's a palpable sense of urgency in his steps, and you can see that he, too, feels the weight of the moment. The gods have broken their silence, and Babylon is facing the consequences of its long-neglected faith. The city, once so proud, now feels like a ship caught in a tempest, its passengers struggling to stay afloat while the storm batters them from all sides. The once bustling markets are now eerily quiet, their vendors nowhere to be seen. The familiar sights of Babylon, its great walls, its towering ziggurats, its bustling plazas, are barely visible through the sheets of rain. The city seems to be disappearing beneath the floodwaters, slipping into a watery grave. The scribe leads you to a familiar structure, a small temple hidden away in a quiet corner of the city. The wooden door creaks open, and you step inside, your wet clothes sticking to your skin as you make your way into the dimly lit chamber. The air inside is thick with incense, the smoke curling upward like the prayers of the people, rising to the heavens in a desperate plea for mercy. Though the high priest stands before the altar, his robes drenched, his face grim. He looks up as you enter, his eyes filled with a mixture of sorrow and resignation. "It's worse than we thought," the scribe says softly, his voice filled with dread. "The omens, they've failed us." The high priest nods, his expression unchanged. "The gods are angry," he says quietly, almost to himself. "We have ignored their warnings for too long, and now they have turned their faces from us." You step forward, feeling the weight of the situation settle around you. This isn't just a storm. This isn't just bad luck. This is something more, something ancient and primal. The gods are punishing Babylon for its hubris, for its reliance on false signs, for its refusal to listen to the world around it. Now, the storm is the first of many signs, the high priest says, his voice trembling slightly. The flood waters, the lightning, the wind, they are all a warning, but there is more to come. The gods are not finished with us yet. You don't know what to say. The weight of the words is almost too much to bear. The gods are angry. Babylon, the mighty empire that once ruled the known world, is on the brink of destruction. And all because the people have stopped listening, stopped paying attention to the omens that once guided them. Historians still debate whether the Babylonians believed their gods were truly capable of wrath, or if they simply used the concept of divine punishment as a tool for social control. But here, in this moment, the storm outside feels like a tangible manifestation of that anger. A physical reminder that the gods can take away everything in an instant. The high priest turns to the altar, his hands trembling as he begins to chant in a low, rhythmic voice. The scribe steps forward, joining in, and you follow, unsure of what else to do. The words are foreign to you, ancient syllables that seem to carry a weight of their own. The priest's voice grows louder, more fervent, and you can feel the energy in the room shift. There is power in the words, power that calls out to something beyond the physical world. And then, as the chanting reaches a crescendo, the room falls silent. The air feels thick, charged with anticipation, and you can hear the distant rumble of thunder. The high priest lowers his hands, his face pale. "Oh, it is done," he whispers. You don't know what he means by that, but something inside you tells you that the ritual has not brought peace. It has not appeased the gods. The storm rages on outside, and you feel a deep sense of foreboding settle over you. The city is changing, and so are you. There's no going back now. The storm rages through the night, its fury unmatched. The wind howls, bending the trees and tearing at the buildings, while the floodwaters rise higher with every passing minute. You can hear the frantic shouts of people in the streets trying to make their way to safety, but their voices are swallowed by the storm. You stand in the small temple, watching the high priest and the scribe as they prepare for whatever comes next. The air is thick with incense, the smoke curling up to the ceiling, and you can feel the tension in the room, heavy and oppressive. The gods have broken their silence, and now Babylon must face the consequences. The high priest stands before the altar, his eyes closed, his hands raised as though trying to summon the gods' favor. The scribe watches him intently, his expression grim, as though he knows what's at stake. "What do we do now?" you ask, your voice barely audible over the roar of the storm outside. The high priest doesn't answer immediately. He seems lost in his own thoughts, his mind wrestling with the weight of what's happening. Finally, he speaks, his voice low and filled with sorrow. "There is nothing more to be done," he says, his words carrying the weight of a lifetime of belief. "We have tried to appease the gods with our rituals, but their anger cannot be calmed. Babylon has reached the end of its time." The words strike you like a blow, and for a moment the room feels smaller, the air thicker. The weight of the high priest's statement hangs in the air, an undeniable truth that you can't ignore. Babylon, the great city that once stood as a symbol of power and might, is on the brink of collapse. The gods have turned away, and there is nothing left to save it. You turn to the scribe, hoping for some sign of hope, but his face is ashen, his eyes filled with the same understanding. He knows it too. Babylon is finished. But there's one thing you don't understand. If the gods are so angry, if they've truly abandoned the city, why are the storms still here? Why are the omens still so powerful, so vivid? Could it be that the gods haven't left but are simply waiting for the people to change, to listen, to remember the lessons of the past? You don't know the answer, but you feel it in your bones, that deep, unsettling feeling that something is about to happen, something that will change everything. You step outside the temple, the wind hitting you like a physical force. The storm has intensified, the rain coming down in sheets, the floodwaters rising higher and higher. The city is being torn apart, its foundations shaken to their core. And yet you can't help but wonder if this is just the beginning. The gods have spoken, but their message is unclear. What do they want from Babylon? What do they want from you? As you watch the storm rage, you realize that Babylon is at the mercy of forces far greater than anyone can understand. The gods have spoken, and now the city must listen. But the question remains, will it? The storm does not relent. It grows fiercer with every passing hour, and Babylon, a city built on the strength of its walls, now feels as fragile as a house of cards. The floodwaters, relentless in their advance, have swallowed the streets, the once bustling marketplaces now submerged beneath the torrent. The hum of the city is gone, no voices, no laughter, only the howling wind and the constant roar of the rain. You walk through the ruins of Babylon, the floodwaters reaching up to your knees. The streets you've walked 1,000 times are now alien, their familiar curves and corners hidden beneath water. The lamplights that once guided your path now flicker and fade, their light barely visible through the thick downpour. The city that once seemed eternal is now drowning, as though it is being reclaimed by the very forces that gave it life. As you wade through the water, the weight of what's happening presses down on you. You've always known that Babylon was a city of power and influence, but you never truly understood how fragile it all was, how easily it could be swept away by the whims of the gods or the unpredictable forces of nature. You find yourself drawn toward the riverbank, the Euphrates still flowing, but its course now altered by the storm. The once mighty river seems small compared to the power of the storm that rages over it. The gods, in their anger, have sent more than just rain. They've sent a flood, a force of nature so strong that it's washing away the pride of Babylon. You stand there for a long moment, watching the river's waters churn and swirl. The city around you seems so still, as if it too is waiting for something, waiting for the final blow. The temples, the palaces, the grand ziggurats, all of it is submerged beneath the rising tide. Even the great walls, which have stood for centuries, seem powerless in the face of this divine wrath. The floodwaters rise higher, and you realize with a start that the city's fate has already been sealed. Babylon is crumbling, its ancient foundations eroded by the storm. There's nothing left to do but watch and wait. The gods have spoken, and their judgment is final. Historians still argue over whether the flood that ravaged Babylon was truly the gods' wrath or simply the result of natural disaster. Some believe it was a punishment for the city's sins, while others suggest that it was merely a shift in the weather patterns. But in this moment, standing on the edge of the river, you can't help but feel that it's both. The storm, the flood, the silence of the gods, it all feels like a message. And Babylon is listening. The floodwaters have reached the highest point now, and the streets of Babylon are a labyrinth of rushing currents and swamped buildings. The air is thick with moisture, and the storm rages above, its fury unyielding. There is no escaping it. The city, once a symbol of grandeur and power, now lies at the mercy of the elements. You wander through the flooded streets, your feet sinking into the wet earth with every step. The sound of rushing water is deafening, drowning out everything else. The city's once great structures, now half submerged, seem like forgotten relics, their beauty hidden beneath a veil of destruction. The ziggurats, which once touched the heavens, now seem like faded memories lost in the rising tide. You pass by the remnants of a once thriving marketplace. The stalls that once sold spices, textiles, and pottery are now floating in the water, their goods scattered and ruined. The vibrant colors of the market are muted now, washed away by the storm. You can almost hear the echoes of the bustling crowd, the laughter of the vendors, the chatter of the shoppers. But now it's just silence and the relentless sound of the flood. As you move deeper into the city, you notice the faces of the people you pass. Their expressions are blank, resigned. There's no panic, no desperation, just a quiet acceptance. The flood has come, and there's nothing anyone can do to stop it. The gods have made their judgment, and Babylon must face the consequences. You approach a small gathering of people standing near a large temple. They are huddled together, their eyes fixed on the building, their faces filled with a mix of fear and reverence. The high priest stands at the entrance of the temple, his hands raised to the heavens, his voice carrying over the wind as he chants the ancient prayers. The crowd is silent, watching him, waiting for something. But what are they waiting for? A miracle? A sign from the gods? Or perhaps they are simply waiting for the end, for the moment when the city will be swallowed whole by the storm. You walk closer, your feet barely making a sound in the wet earth. The high priest's words grow louder, more urgent. But there is no change. The rain continues to fall, the winds continue to howl, and the floodwaters continue to rise. The gods are silent, and Babylon, once the jewel of the ancient world, is being swallowed by the storm. There is a moment of stillness as the high priest lowers his hands. He turns to the crowd, his face drawn with exhaustion, and speaks in a voice that is barely audible over the storm. "Oh, the gods are angry," he says. But we must not lose faith. Even in the face of destruction, we must remain steadfast. But you see the truth in his eyes, the fear, the uncertainty. He knows as well as you do that this storm, this flood, is not just a natural disaster. It is a message from the gods, and Babylon is failing to listen. You feel a deep sense of sorrow as you look around at the city, its people, and its fate. Babylon's time has come, and there is nothing left to do but wait. The gods have spoken, and now the storm will cleanse the city of its pride. Historians still debate whether the storm that ravaged Babylon was truly the work of the gods or simply the result of natural forces. But standing here in the heart of the flood, you realize that it doesn't matter. The gods have spoken, and Babylon must face the consequences of its actions. The flood is not just a physical force, it is a symbol of the city's downfall. The gods have turned their backs and Babylon is paying the price. You turn away from the crowd, your heart heavy with the weight of it all. The storm is far from over and Babylon's future is uncertain. But one thing is clear, this is the end of an era. The great city, once invincible, is now just another casualty of time. And as the storm rages on, you know that Babylon will never be the same again. The floodwaters have risen, and with them, the city's glory has begun to wash away. The gods have spoken, and their message is clear. Nothing lasts forever. The rain has slowed to a gentle drizzle now, but the floodwaters have not receded. They continue to rise, stubborn and unforgiving, filling the streets of Babylon with the weight of their presence. The city, once bustling with life, now lies still beneath the shadow of the storm, as if time itself has come to a halt. You stand near the edge of the floodwaters, watching as they lap against the ruins of the city, slowly claiming what was once so grand. The great temples, the ziggurats, the magnificent city walls, all of them now lie half-submerged, their once imposing structures muted beneath the swirling tide. The flood has swallowed much of Babylon's splendor, leaving only traces of its former glory. The air is thick with the scent of wet earth and decay, and the wind still carries a chill though the storm has passed. The once distant sound of rushing water is now everywhere, filling the air with its constant, rhythmic rush. It's almost as if the river has claimed the city as its own, pulling it into the earth with a quiet, unstoppable force. As you walk through the flooded streets, you see the faces of the people, some huddled together, others standing alone, their expressions resigned. There is no panic here, no outcry. The people of Babylon are, for the most part, silent. Their city is drowning, their gods have turned away, and yet they remain standing in the midst of the ruins, accepting their fate with a quiet dignity that feels almost ancient. You pass by a small group of men standing near the edge of a submerged marketplace, their eyes fixed on the ruins. One of them, an older man with a weathered face, turns to you as you approach. They said the gods would never abandon us, he says quietly, his voice hoarse from the wind. They said Babylon would stand forever. You nod, but your words feel empty, meaningless. There is no comfort to offer, the truth is too obvious. The city, the gods, the priests, they all believed that Babylon would endure forever. But the flood has come, and with it, the realization that even the greatest of civilizations are subject to the whims of nature. Time doesn't care about power, about glory, about belief. It simply moves inexorably forward, sweeping away everything in its path. Historians still debate the fall of Babylon. Some claim that it was an invading army, others suggest it was an economic collapse, a failure of leadership, or a shift in the balance of power. But standing here in the heart of the ruined city, you realize that perhaps it doesn't matter. Babylon's fate was sealed long before the floodwaters came. It was the city's pride, its arrogance, that led to its downfall. And now, as the floodwaters continue to rise, you understand that Babylon was not just swallowed by nature. It was swallowed by its own hubris. The floodwaters have crested, but the rain has stopped, leaving behind a drenched, exhausted city. Babylon, once a shining jewel of civilization, is now a shadow of its former self. The streets are still flooded, the buildings half submerged, and the air is thick with the scent of decay and damp stone. You stand in the middle of the city, surrounded by the ruins, your feet sinking into the wet earth as you walk. The silence is unnerving, broken only by the occasional rustle of a stray piece of debris carried by the slow-moving waters. The storm has passed, but its aftermath is everywhere, deep in the flooded streets, in the fallen stones, in the empty faces of the people who remain. In the distance, you see the high priest standing on the steps of the great temple, his robes still soaked from the storm. His face is somber, but there's something in his posture that speaks of quiet resignation. He's looking out over the ruins, his hands clasped together as though in prayer. You approach him, your steps slow, as though the weight of the city's collapse is pressing down on your shoulders. "What now?" you ask, your voice hoarse from the wind and the dust. "What do we do now?" The high priest doesn't look at you right away. He's staring out at the horizon, as though searching for an answer in the gray sky. "The gods have spoken," he says at last, his voice heavy with sorrow. "Babylon was never meant to last forever. It was always a fleeting thing, a moment in time. We have forgotten that. We believed we were invincible, that we could control the future with our rituals, our signs, our omens, but we were wrong." He turns to face you, his eyes filled with the weight of centuries of belief. "We thought the gods would always favor us. We thought we were their chosen people destined to rule the world, but we were foolish. The gods are not here for our convenience. They are not here to serve us. They are here to remind us of our place in the world. And when we forget that, when we become too proud, too complacent, they remind us that nothing is permanent." You look around at the ruined city, at the floodwaters that still rise and the silence that fills the streets. It's hard to imagine that this was once a thriving, bustling metropolis, the heart of an empire that stretched across the known world. Now it is a graveyard, a reminder of the fragility of even the greatest civilizations. The high priest's words hang in the air, heavy and final. You can feel the weight of the city's history pressing down on you. Babylon was a city of power, of gods, of men who believed they were unstoppable. And yet here it is, drowning in the wake of its own pride. The priest lowers his gaze, his shoulders slumping as though the weight of Babylon's fall is too much to bear. He looks at you one last time, his eyes filled with quiet resignation. "It is over," he says softly. "But the gods will always remain. They will watch, they will wait. And one day perhaps they will find a new city to bless." As you stand there surrounded by the ruins, you feel the weight of his words settle deep within you. Babylon's time has come to an end, but the world will continue. The gods will continue. And somewhere in the distant future, another city will rise, built on the lessons of Babylon's fall. For now, all you can do is walk away, leaving the ruins behind, and let the storm's final whispers fade into the distance. As you walk away from the ruined temple, the wet ground squelches beneath your feet, the floodwaters still high but slowly receding. The once vibrant and bustling streets of Babylon are now eerily quiet, as if the city is holding its breath, waiting for something more to happen. You glance around at the familiar landmarks, now barely recognizable through the mist of the storm's aftermath. The towering ziggurats, once symbols of Babylon's greatness, are half submerged, their peaks lost in the heavy fog that has settled over the city like a blanket. The air is thick with humidity, and a faint smell of damp earth and rotting wood fills your nostrils. The streets that were once a chorus of life, vendors shouting, children laughing, animals roaming, are now hushed, with only the sound of the occasional creaking wood or distant crash of falling debris breaking the silence. Babylon, the great empire that once stretched its might across the ancient world, now feels as fragile as a dream that is fading upon awakening. You pass by a small group of survivors huddled near the entrance of a collapsed building. Their clothes are soaked, their faces drawn with exhaustion. There are no tears, no outbursts of anger, just the quiet acceptance that has come to define the city's people in these final moments. The gods have spoken, and they've found Babylon lacking. One man, his face weathered by years of hardship, looks up as you approach. His eyes are empty, distant, as though he's seen something that has forever altered the way he sees the world. "Do you think it will end?" he asks, his voice cracked, almost inaudible over the wind. "Do you think this is it?" You want to answer him, to tell him that everything will be all right, that this is just a storm and that Babylon, like all great cities, will rise again. But the words don't come. What could you possibly say? The gods have spoken and their message is clear. Babylon is no more. It is not just the flood that is tearing this city apart. It is the unraveling of everything the people believed in. The gods have withdrawn their favor, and Babylon has been exposed for what it always was, a fleeting moment in the grand scheme of time. Historians still debate the precise moment when Babylon began to decline. Was it the internal corruption that slowly ate away at the city's core, or was it the shifting power dynamics that left Babylon vulnerable to invasion? Perhaps, as some have speculated, it was the loss of faith, the slow erosion of belief in the gods that truly sealed Babylon's fate. As you continue to walk, the weight of these thoughts settles heavily on your chest. The streets feel more like a battlefield now, each step taken in silence, as if the city is mourning its own demise. The once mighty Babylon, now reduced to ruins, is a reminder that nothing, no empire, no kingdom, no civilization, lasts forever. The floodwaters continue their steady retreat, but the damage has already been done. The city of Babylon, once a beacon of power and innovation, is now a hollow shell, its towering structures crumbling into the earth like the remnants of a forgotten dream. The air is thick with the scent of decay and the unmistakable stench of wet stone. You find yourself walking through the heart of the city, passing by the ruins of what was once the great palace of the kings. The palace, with its gleaming marble floors and towering walls adorned with intricate carvings, now lies in tatters, the opulence of a bygone era now reduced to rubble. The grand halls that once echoed with the sounds of feasts and celebrations are now silent, their walls crumbling under the weight of time and neglect. The once mighty throne room where the king would have sat now feels like a tomb, a place where power has come to die. You stop for a moment, your hand resting lightly on the cold, damp stone of what was once the throne. You can almost hear the voices of the kings who sat here, their decrees echoing through the halls. But the voices are gone now, replaced by the steady drip of water falling from broken windows and the distant sound of the wind howling through the broken walls. In the distance, you can see a group of survivors huddled together, their faces drawn with exhaustion and fear. They are the last of Babylon's people, the ones who survived the flood, the ones who have witnessed the fall of their city. You feel a pang of sorrow for them. They are all that remains, the last remnants of a civilization that believed it was invincible. You approach them slowly, your feet making little sound in the wet earth. They don't look up at first, too consumed with their own thoughts to notice you. But then one of them, a woman with dark, weary eyes, raises her head. She looks at you for a long moment, as if trying to read your face to see if you have the answers she is seeking. "What do we do now?" she asks, her voice soft but filled with a desperation that cuts through the silence. "Where do we go from here?" You don't have an answer for her. There is no answer. The gods have spoken and their judgment is final. Babylon is no more, and with it, the world the people once knew. The city is lost to the flood, its history washed away by the very waters that once brought life. Historians still debate whether the fall of Babylon was inevitable, or whether it was brought on by the choices made by its rulers and people. But here, in the ruins of the city, it doesn't matter. Babylon's fate has already been sealed, and the gods have turned their gaze elsewhere. You watch as the survivors slowly begin to move, their feet sinking into the wet earth as they leave the palace behind. There is no purpose in staying. The city is gone, and there is no reason to linger in its shadow. You follow them, your steps slow, unsure of where you are going. The storm has passed, but the devastation remains. Babylon's time has come to an end, and there is no more fighting against it. The gods have spoken, and now it is time for the people to listen. As you leave the ruins of Babylon behind, you can't help but wonder what will happen next. Will the survivors rebuild? Will they start anew, or will the memory of Babylon's glory fade into the past, a forgotten chapter in the long history of the world? Perhaps one day a new civilization will rise from the ashes of Babylon, as all things must eventually rise and fall. But for now, all that remains is the silence, the quiet aftermath of a city that once ruled the world. You look up at the sky, the storm clouds parting to reveal the faint glow of the stars. The gods, it seems, are silent no longer. But what do they want from us now? What is the lesson that Babylon failed to learn? You may never know, but one thing is certain: Babylon is gone, and the world, for all its glory and pride, will continue to turn. The sun rises slowly over the ruins of Babylon, casting a pale light over the flood-ravaged city. The storm has finally passed, but its effects are still visible everywhere. The floodwaters have receded, but the damage is irreparable. The once proud streets of Babylon are now just a maze of debris and ruin, a city broken beyond recognition. What once stood as a symbol of human achievement now lies in tatters, its splendor faded and its glory forgotten. You find yourself walking through the remains of what used to be the heart of the city, a place where the powerful and the humble alike once mingled. The marketplace, once bustling with life and activity, is now nothing more than a wasteland, its stalls overturned and its wares scattered across the ground. The air smells faintly of wet stone and decaying food, the remnants of a civilization that believed it was immortal. As you walk, you can hear the faint sounds of movement around you. The survivors of Babylon are scattered throughout the ruins, picking through the wreckage in search of anything that might help them rebuild their lives. The faces you see are tired, weary, and filled with a mixture of fear and determination. They are the last remnants of a city that once believed it could conquer the world. Now they are the ones who must face the consequences of their pride. You pass a small group of people gathered near a fallen statue, their hands touching the cold stone as though searching for some trace of what once was. The statue, like so many others, is cracked and broken, its features eroded by time and disaster. Yet there is something strangely beautiful about it, even in its ruin, a reminder of Babylon's former glory. As a woman in the group looks up at you, her face weathered by both time and hardship. "Do you think it's possible?" she asks, her voice shaky but filled with a quiet determination. "Do you think we can rebuild?" You want to offer her hope, to tell her that everything will be fine, that Babylon will rise again. But you know better. The city is gone. Its time has passed, and no amount of effort can turn back the hands of time. The gods have spoken, and Babylon has fallen. But as you stand there, surrounded by the remnants of a once great civilization, you begin to realize something. Babylon may have fallen, but its story is not over. It lives on in the people who remain, in the memories of those who walked its streets and built its temples. It lives on in the lessons it leaves behind, the mistakes made, and the pride that led to its undoing. The woman watches you as you pause, her eyes searching for some sign of reassurance. You nod, offering a silent gesture of understanding. She doesn't need hope, she needs strength. And in that moment, you realize that the strength to rebuild comes not from the gods, but from within. It is the people who carry the story of Babylon forward in their hearts and minds. Historians still debate the reasons for Babylon's fall, whether it was the greed of its rulers, the shifting sands of power, or the anger of the gods. But in the end, it was the people of Babylon who bore the consequences of their actions. And now they must rebuild not just their city but their lives. The days following the storm are spent in a strange, quiet recovery. The floodwaters have finally receded, but the damage remains. Babylon, once a city of unimaginable wealth and power, is now a place of mourning and loss. The grand ziggurats, the temples, the royal palaces, everything that once defined the city's glory is now buried beneath the debris of the flood. The survivors have begun to sift through the wreckage, searching for anything that might be salvaged, but it feels as though they are searching for ghosts. As you walk through the city, the streets are quieter now. The cries of survivors have faded into murmurs, and the sound of rebuilding is slow, deliberate. Small groups gather in the rubble, discussing what to do next. Some are seeking to rebuild their homes, others to re-establish the markets and trade routes that once thrived. It is a slow, painstaking process, and no one seems to have any clear idea of how to move forward. Yet there is a sense of unity in the air, a feeling that the people are not willing to let Babylon die. Despite the destruction, despite the gods' silence, there is something in the hearts of the survivors that refuses to let the city be forgotten. Babylon's pride may have led to its downfall, but its people's resilience will be what ultimately carries them forward. You pass by a group of men working together to clear debris from a collapsed building. They move in silence, their faces grim but determined. There is no anger, no fear, only a quiet resolve to rebuild what has been lost. Their actions speak louder than words, and you can't help but admire their determination. As a young boy, his clothes torn and muddy, approaches you as you stand on the sidelines. He looks up at you, his eyes filled with an innocence that feels out of place in the ruins of Babylon. "Do you think the gods will help us?" he asks, his voice small but curious. You kneel down to his level, looking into his wide, hopeful eyes. You wish you could tell him that everything will be all right, that the gods will return and guide them. But the truth is, you do know. You don't know if the gods will help them or if they have already turned their backs on Babylon for good. Instead, you place a hand gently on the boy's shoulder and offer him the only answer you have. "The gods may not help us," you say softly, "but we can help ourselves." The boy's face brightens, a small smile spreading across his lips. He nods as if understanding something deeper than mere words can convey. Then, without another word, he runs off to join the others, eager to help rebuild the world he knows. As you watch him disappear into the crowd, you realize that this is the true strength of Babylon, not its gods, not its mighty rulers or its grand buildings, but its people. It is their resilience, their unwavering determination to rise from the ashes that will carry the city forward. Babylon may have fallen, but its story is far from over. Its future lies in the hands of those who remain, who are willing to learn from the past and rebuild what was lost. And perhaps in time, Babylon will rise again, not as it once was, but as something new, something stronger, something wiser. Historians will tell the story of Babylon's fall for centuries to come, but the survivors will tell the story of its rebirth. The gods may have spoken, but it is the people who will decide Babylon's fate. And as the sun sets on the ruins of the city, you realize that the story of Babylon is far from finished. It is merely beginning again, one brick, one stone, one step at a time. The weeks that follow the storm are a blur of hard work and determination. Babylon, now reduced to a shadow of its former self, is slowly beginning to rebuild. The floodwaters have fully receded, leaving behind a city of ruins and rubble, but the survivors are undeterred. They've started clearing the streets, salvaging what little can be saved, and piecing together the remnants of their shattered world. The sun rises each morning over the ruins, casting a pale, cold light over the broken city. The once bustling markets are now quiet, their wooden stalls shattered and their goods scattered in the muddy streets. The grand ziggurats which once touched the sky now stand as empty shells, their towering forms eroded by the storm. But even in their decay, they hold a kind of quiet dignity, as though they refuse to give in to the storm's fury. You walk through the city, the sound of hammering and the scraping of metal and stone filling the air. Small groups of people have gathered together, working as one to rebuild their homes and their lives. It's slow work, but there's a shared sense of purpose here. A belief that, despite everything, Babylon will rise again. In the distance, you see a group of men and women gathered around what was once the city's grand palace. They're cleaning the rubble, sorting through the remains of the grand halls. Some are trying to repair what they can, while others simply stand, staring at the destruction as if unsure where to start. The palace, once the heart of Babylon's power, is now little more than a heap of broken stone. The grandeur that once filled these halls is gone, replaced by the silence of ruin. You approach the group cautiously, your eyes scanning the scene. It's a sobering sight. The great palace, which once housed kings and queens, is now nothing more than a memory. And yet, even here, in the midst of this destruction, there's a sense of resilience. The people are not merely mourning the loss of their city, they are actively rebuilding it, brick by brick, stone by stone. As you stand there watching the scene unfold, an older woman approaches you. Her face is lined with age, her hands calloused from years of hard work. She carries a small bundle of materials in her arms, and as she walks past, she stops and looks you up and down. "You're one of the outsiders, aren't you?" she asks, her voice rough but kind. "You've seen what's happened to our city, seen how the gods have turned their faces from us." You nod, unsure of how to respond. "But you don't understand, do you?" she continues, her eyes narrowing slightly. "You don't understand that the gods are not just a part of Babylon, they are Babylon. We live with them, work with them. They are not some distant force watching us from afar. They are with us in our hearts, in our hands, in every stone we lay down." Her words hang in the air, heavy with meaning. It's clear that to the people of Babylon, the gods are not just beings to be, they are an integral part of their existence. Without the gods, there is no Babylon. Without the gods, there is no strength to rebuild, no will to carry on. "We've lost a lot," the woman says, her voice softening. "But we've lost more than just our city. We've lost our faith. We've lost the connection between us and the gods, and that's something that will take time to rebuild." And she turns and walks away, leaving you standing there in silence. You watch her as she joins the others, carrying her bundle to the heart of the ruin, where a small group of men are already working on restoring the foundations of what was once the palace. They work together, side by side, their faces set with determination. And you realize as you watch them that the true strength of Babylon is not in its grand structures or its gods. It is in its people, their resilience, their unity, their unwillingness to give up, even in the face of the greatest adversity. Historians will tell the story of Babylon's rise and fall for centuries to come, but the true story of this city, the one that will survive long after the ruins have crumbled, is the story of its people. The gods may have abandoned them, but they will find their strength in one another. They will rebuild not because the gods demand it, but because they themselves are strong enough to carry on. The days grow longer and the work continues. Babylon's streets are filled with the sounds of hammers, chisels, and the quiet murmur of voices as the people rebuild their homes, their markets, and their lives. There is a palpable sense of urgency now, as though the city itself is holding its breath, waiting for the moment when it will once again breathe life into its broken walls. You walk through the streets, watching as the survivors work tirelessly to piece together the pieces of their shattered world. There is no grand plan, no blueprint for how Babylon will rise again. There are no kings, no priests, no gods to guide them. There is only the will of the people, their hands, their hearts, their determination to rebuild what has been lost. You pass by a small group of women sitting on the steps of a collapsed building, sorting through a pile of broken pottery. They work in silence, their hands moving swiftly, expertly, as though this small task is a way for them to regain some sense of control over their lives. A young girl no older than 10 sits at the edge of the group, her eyes fixed on the pile of rubble in front of her. She is silent, but there is something in her gaze, something that speaks of an understanding far beyond her years. One of the women looks up as you approach and offers a small smile. "You've seen the worst of it, haven't you?" she says, her voice soft but steady. "But you've also seen the best of it too. The people of Babylon, they are not broken, not yet." Her words echo in your mind as you walk on, through the broken streets and across the ruined marketplaces. There is no grand rebuilding effort, no force driving the people forward. They are simply doing what they must do, rebuilding one stone, one piece of rubble at a time. You pause near what was once the city's great temple, its towering spires now little more than jagged remnants of stone. The altar, where once the priests would have offered sacrifices to the gods, is now empty, its offerings abandoned, its significance lost. But there is still something sacred about this place. The people still come here not to pray to the gods, but to offer their hopes, their dreams, their memories. A small group of children sits near the altar, their faces dirty but bright with the energy of youth. They play with what little they have, small pieces of stone, broken toys, scraps of cloth, creating their own little world amid the ruins. It is a world that they have built for themselves out of the debris of the city, and it is enough for them. For now, it is enough. You watch them for a moment, the sounds of their laughter cutting through the stillness of the city. It's a reminder that even in the face of destruction, there is still hope. There is still life. The people of Babylon may have lost everything, but they have not lost their will to live, to rebuild, to move forward. And as you watch the children play, you realize something that has been slowly dawning on you since the storm. Babylon may have fallen, but it is not truly gone. The city lives on in the people who remain, in their resilience, in their determination to carry on. Babylon's story is not over. It is only just beginning. Historians will continue to debate the reasons for Babylon's fall, But the true story of the city lies in the hands of those who survive it. The gods may have turned away, but the people of Babylon will continue because they have something more powerful than the favor of the gods. They have each other. And in the end, that may be enough to rebuild what has been lost. The weeks stretch into months, and the people of Babylon work tirelessly, their efforts slowly but surely beginning to reshape the ruined city. The storm's fury has subsided, but the scars it left behind are deep. Still, the survivors press on, determined to restore what they can to bring the city back from the brink of destruction. The streets, once flooded and lifeless, are now full of activity once more, though the bustle is quieter, more solemn, as though the city is holding on to its dignity rather than its pride. The grand ziggurats that once dominated the skyline are now crumbled husks, their once majestic steps eroded by time and water. Yet even in their brokenness they hold a quiet majesty. Their broken forms stand as a reminder of the city's former glory, but also as a testament to its fragility. The ziggurats were built to reach the heavens, but now they rest in the earth, as though acknowledging the impermanence of even the mightiest of civilizations. You find yourself wandering through the streets again, the weight of the city's history pressing down on you as you take in the progress the people have made. There is little left of the old Babylon, the grand palaces, the sprawling gardens, the marketplace that once bustled with life. But what remains is something more meaningful, something that can't be destroyed by floodwaters or the wrath of the gods, the people. You see them as you walk, working together, piecing together the fragments of their shattered world. There is no grand vision here, no leader calling the shots. Just ordinary men, women, and children laboring side by side, each one doing what they can to bring Babylon back from the edge of oblivion. You pass by a small group of workers carrying stones from the river, their hands raw and blistered from the effort. They don't look up as you approach, too focused on their task, but you can see the determination in their eyes. They are not building for glory, not for the gods, they are building because they must. Babylon will rise again, not because of fate or divine intervention, but because these people refuse to let it fade into the past. In the distance, you hear the faint sound of hammers striking stone, the rhythm of progress slow but steady. The people are rebuilding their homes, their markets, their lives. It is not fast and it is not easy, but it is happening. There are no grand plans, no sweeping declarations. There is only the quiet, unyielding will to move forward to rebuild what was lost. You stop at a nearby gathering where a small group of survivors have gathered to share food. It's simple fare, bread, fruit, and water, but it's enough. They sit together on the ground, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of a fire, and they talk softly, their voices a quiet hum of conversation. One man, an older figure with a beard graying at the edges, looks up as you approach. He offers you a small bowl of food and gestures to the others. "Sit with us," he says, his voice warm. "We don't have much, but we have each other." You sit down with them, accepting the food and the warmth of their company. The meal is simple, but it feels like more than just sustenance. It feels like an offering of survival, of hope, and of community. The gods may have abandoned them, but they have not abandoned each other. And that in itself is something sacred. As you eat, you listen to the stories they share. They talk of their families, their lives before the storm, and the work they have ahead of them. There is no bitterness in their words, no regret. There is only quiet acceptance and determination. They know the path ahead will be long and difficult, but they will walk it together. You realize as you listen to their voices that Babylon's true strength lies not in its grand structures, its gods, or its wealth. It lies in its people, their ability to endure, to rebuild, and to find meaning even in the face of overwhelming loss. They are the heart of Babylon, and as long as they continue to beat, the city will continue to live. And historians will continue to debate what led to Babylon's fall, but here, in this small circle of survivors, the true legacy of the city is being written. It is not the legacy of kings or gods, but the legacy of the people who lived here, of the men, women, and children who endured the storm, who picked up the pieces, and who refused to let the city die. As the days begin to blend together, each one much like the last, the work continues, the rebuilding slow but relentless. There are no more grand ceremonies, no more prayers to the gods. The people of Babylon have learned that their survival does not depend on divine favor but on their own strength. It is not the gods who will restore Babylon, it is the people. You stand in the middle of a newly constructed market square, the stone underfoot still rough and uneven but solid. The square is small compared to what it once was, but it is a start. Stalls have been set up along the edges and a handful of traders have begun to return, offering what goods they can find in the remnants of the city. The air smells of fresh bread and spices, and you can hear the quiet hum of conversation as people haggle and trade. It is not the vibrant, bustling marketplace that once filled these streets, but it is alive again. And that in itself is a victory. The people have begun to reclaim their space to rebuild what was lost. It is not perfect, but it is progress. You watch as a group of children run past you, laughing and playing in the square. They are covered in mud, their clothes torn and dirty, but their faces are bright with the joy of simply being alive. They run through the puddles, their laughter echoing in the air, and for a moment you forget the destruction, the loss, the storm. You forget everything but the sound of their laughter. It is a small thing, but it is a sign. A sign that life in all its simplicity will continue. That the children of Babylon will grow, learn, and rebuild their world just as their parents are doing now. The cycle will continue as it always does, and one day perhaps Babylon will once again stand tall, though it may never be the same. You walk through the market square, your feet sinking into the wet earth. You see the faces of the people, older, weathered, but filled with a quiet determination. They are not the kings or the priests, but they are the true strength of Babylon. They are the ones who will rebuild the city brick by brick, stone by stone. And they will do it without the gods, without the grand temples and ziggurats, because they have something more powerful than all of that. Though they have each other. As you leave the market square, the sun begins to dip below the horizon, casting a warm golden light over the ruins of the city. The shadows stretch long across the ground and the air cools, the day's heat finally receding. You look around at the people of Babylon, their faces illuminated by the fading sunlight, and you realize that the city is not dead. It may have fallen, but it is not gone. Babylon is not defined by its gods, its kings, or its structures. It is defined by its people, and as long as they continue to fight, to rebuild, and to hope, Babylon will never truly die. Historians will write about the fall of Babylon, about its rise and its ruin, but the people of Babylon will continue to write their own story. A story of resilience, of hope, of rebirth. And one day, when the ruins are forgotten and the city has been rebuilt, their story will be the one that endures. The gods may have spoken, but it is the people who will decide Babylon's future. And as you walk away from the market square, you feel a quiet hope rising within you. The story of Babylon is not over. It is just beginning. The days stretch long, the heat of the sun finally giving way to the cooler breeze of the evening, but the atmosphere of Babylon feels different now. There is an almost tangible shift in the air, as if the storm has not only cleared the streets but also the spirit of the city. The floodwaters have left their mark, but so too has the resilience of the people. Their quiet determination to rebuild has begun to take root, and Babylon, though, is finding its footing again. You walk through the heart of the city, where the sounds of hammers, chisels, and the scrape of stone are ever present. There's a rhythm to it now, a steady beat that matches the pulse of the city itself. The survivors have begun working in earnest, their hands rough from labor, their faces lined with exhaustion but resolute in purpose. They are not just rebuilding, they are reclaiming their identity, their dignity, piece by piece. As you pass by the remnants of what was once the city's grandest temple, you notice a group of artisans carefully chiseling away at the stone, attempting to restore the intricate carvings that once adorned the walls. The intricate figures, gods, kings, and animals, are slowly reappearing from the rubble, a testament to Babylon's storied past. But there is something different about the way they approach it. It's not with the same reverence that once filled the air when the gods were thought to be watching over them. Instead, there's a new, quiet pride in their work, as if they are acknowledging the past while no longer waiting for the gods to lead them forward. You pause for a moment to observe them, the clink of stone against stone blending with the soft murmur of the workers around you. The city is not what it was, but there's something fresh, something determined in the air, and it fills you with a quiet sense of optimism. This is not the Babylon that fell to ruin. It's the Babylon that will rise again, this time with a strength that is born not from the gods, but from the very hearts of the people. You see a woman walk past with a basket of fruit, her face tired but smiling. She greets you with a nod, but her steps are sure. She's not just carrying food, she's carrying the future of Babylon. You can see it in her eyes, the quiet defiance in her gaze. She knows that the path ahead won't be easy, but she also knows that they can make it through because they are not dependent on the gods or on the favor of kings. They are building their future with their own hands. You continue through the city, passing by the remnants of what were once grand homes, now turned into makeshift shelters and storage. Yet even in the simplicity of these rebuilt spaces, there's a new sense of community. The people no longer live in isolation. They've come together, each one bringing their own strengths to the table. There is no room for pride or division now. There is only survival, and more importantly, there is hope. As you pass by the makeshift market, you hear the sounds of bargaining, the clink of coins, and the laughter of children playing nearby. It's a quiet hum, but it's the hum of life returning. The once grand marketplace has shrunk, but it is still alive. The stalls are smaller now, but they carry the same goods, the same fruits of the earth. Babylon may have lost its grandeur, but it has not lost its heart. And that heart is the people, the ones who remain, the ones who will carry Babylon's memory forward even as they rebuild it. The gods may have turned their gaze away, but Babylon's spirit is not gone. It is in the hands of those who have stayed behind, who have chosen to rebuild, to rise again from the ashes. You stop by a small fire where an elder is sitting, his face lined with years of wisdom. He looks at you with a knowing smile. "You've seen it, haven't you?" he asks softly, his voice filled with both sadness and a deep, unshakable resolve. "This is how it always is. The city falls, the gods turn away, but the people they rise." You nod, not knowing exactly what to say, but his words echo in your mind. Babylon may have fallen, but it is not truly gone. The gods may no longer smile upon it, but its story is not finished. The survivors will carry it forward, and they will do it on their own terms. The gods, if they still watch, will see it not as a city of pride, but as a city of strength, of people who learned to survive without their favor. Though the elder looks at you again, his eyes tired but bright. "Oh, the gods left us," he says, his voice gentle. "But we're still here, and as long as we're here, Babylon will live on." The months that follow are filled with both progress and setbacks. Babylon is rebuilding, but it is not the same city it was before. It is quieter, humbler, and in some ways more grounded. The great walls that once protected the city are no longer the towering fortifications they once were. Instead, they are broken and repaired, their gaps filled in with stone and wood. The streets, once lined with grand temples and markets, are now smaller, more intimate. The once grand ziggurats have been reduced to rubble, but in their place, smaller, more practical structures rise, built with the same hands that once carried the weight of the gods. Now, despite the changes, there is a sense of calm settling over the city. It is not the frantic rush of a people trying to restore what was lost. It is the steady, quiet work of rebuilding, of starting over. There are no great ambitions now, no dreams of empire or divine favor. The people of Babylon are focused on the present, on surviving and living together, making the most of what they have. You walk through the rebuilt market again, this time noticing the small details that make it feel alive. Children running between the stalls, the laughter of vendors exchanging stories, the simple joy of people trading goods and services. The once mighty marketplace may have shrunk, but it has found new life in its simplicity. There is no rush here, no need to hurry. The people have time, and they are willing to take it. You stop by a stall where an older woman is selling vegetables, her hands deftly arranging the produce as she talks to a customer. She looks up as you approach, offering a warm smile. "Oh, you're one of the outsiders, aren't you?" she asks, recognizing you. "It's different now, isn't it?" You nod, not sure how to respond. The city is different. Babylon is different, but it is not less. It is more in its own way, more real, more human. The gods may have turned away, but the city still stands, built not on divine favor, but on the strength of its people. We've learned something, the woman continues, her voice soft but strong. We've learned that we don't need the gods to guide us. We can guide ourselves, and that's enough. You smile and thank her, moving on. The conversation lingers in your mind, the words settling into your thoughts like seeds that will take root in time. Babylon may have fallen, but it has not been forgotten. The gods may have abandoned it, but the people have not abandoned each other. They have learned to rebuild not just the city, but their faith in one another. As you leave the market, you look out at the rising sun, casting a warm glow over the city's ruins and new constructions. Babylon is not what it once was, but it is still here. It will never be the city of grand temples or ziggurats. It will never be the mighty empire it once was. But in its own way, it is stronger now than it ever was before. Babylon's story is not one of divine favor or earthly glory. It is the story of resilience, of people who refused to let their city fall, who refused to be defined by their gods or their kings. The gods may have spoken, but it is the people who will write the next chapter. Babylon will live on. And it will do so not through the will of the gods, but through the will of its peoples. As the years pass, Babylon begins to take shape again. It is not the magnificent city it once was, but it is a city with its own unique strength. A city that has learned through hardship that survival is not about grandeur or divine favor, but about unity, resilience, and the will to endure. The gods may have withdrawn their gaze, but the people of Babylon have found a new kind of power, one that comes not from the heavens, but from the earth beneath their feet. The marketplace has grown again, though smaller and quieter than before. The stalls are humble, the goods simpler, but there is life here now. The sounds of bargaining and laughter fill the air, and the once-emptied streets are now bustling with activity once more. It is a city of rebirth, of transformation. The ruins of the past still stand as silent reminders of Babylon's fall, but they are no longer symbols of despair. They are symbols of what has been overcome. You walk through the streets, your footsteps slow but purposeful, taking in the changes around you. The people here no longer look to the heavens for answers. They no longer seek divine signs or omens to guide them. Instead, they are looking inward, relying on their own strength to move forward. There are no grand ceremonies, no sacrifices to the gods. There are only the quiet rhythms of daily life, the work of rebuilding, the sharing of food, the simple acts of kindness and community. You stop by a small workshop where a group of artisans are carefully crafting new tools, carving wood, and shaping metal. Their work is meticulous, each piece carefully honed, each design a reflection of the hands that made it. These tools will not only rebuild the city, they will help the people reclaim their place in the world, one small step at a time. One of the artisans looks up as you pass, his eyes bright with the satisfaction of his work. He nods in greeting, his hands still moving deftly over the wood, carving it into something useful, something beautiful. You stop for a moment, watching him, and he catches your gaze. The city is different now, he says, his voice filled with a quiet pride. We're different. We used to rely on the gods for everything, but now we rely on ourselves. We build with our own hands. His words resonate with you. Babylon may have fallen, but the spirit of its people is unbroken. They have learned that the strength to survive does not come from the gods, but from each other. They have learned that their true power lies not in the grandeur of their buildings or the favor of divine forces, but in their ability to rebuild, to create, and to endure. As you continue through the streets, you can feel a quiet optimism in the air. The city may never return to the glory it once knew, but it is stronger now in its own way. It is a city that has learned to survive without the weight of divine expectation. It is a city that has learned to stand on its own. The years that follow are a period of steady growth and quiet reflection. Babylon is no longer the bustling center of empire that it once was, but it is a city that has found its footing again. The streets are now filled with people working, living, and growing together. The grand temples and ziggurats may be gone, but the heart of Babylon remains, beating softly, steadily in the hands of its people. The city is still rebuilding, but the progress is not measured by how high the walls rise or how grand the structures become. It is measured in the small victories, the daily acts of survival, the quiet determination to make life a little better each day. The people of Babylon have learned that true strength is not about domination or grandeur. It is about persistence, about the will to keep going even when the odds seem insurmountable. You find yourself walking through the marketplace once again, and this time the atmosphere is different. There is no frantic rush, no competition for the best goods. Instead, there is a calm, a sense of community. The traders no longer shout at the top of their lungs trying to outbid one another. They talk quietly with their customers, sharing stories and experiences, offering a sense of camaraderie that has replaced the old sense of rivalry. Though the market is no longer a place of greed, it is a place of sharing, of mutual respect. The children of Babylon play in the streets, their laughter ringing through the air like the sound of a song long forgotten. They are the future of this city, and they carry with them the hope that Babylon will continue to thrive, not because of its past glory, but because of the resilience of its people. You stop by a small group of children playing with scraps of wood and metal, building makeshift toys and structures with the materials they can find. They laugh and shout, their faces bright with the joy of simply being alive. It is a moment of innocence, a fleeting glimpse of what the future may hold for Babylon. These children will grow up in a different city than the one that came before, the city of kings, of gods, of glory. But they will grow up in a city that has learned to live without those things. And that, in itself, is an achievement. You watch them for a moment, the sound of their laughter filling the air, and you realize something important. Babylon may never return to its former glory. The gods may have abandoned it, the great kings may have fallen, and the city may never again rule the known world. But Babylon's true strength lies not in its buildings or its power. It lies in its people, their resilience, their will to survive, and their ability to rebuild not just the city but their hearts. As time passes, the city continues to transform. The work of rebuilding continues, but now it is less about restoring what was lost and more about forging something new. The people of Babylon have embraced the idea that they are not simply recreating the past, they are creating a future of their own making. There is no longer a need to look back at the city's former glory. Babylon's identity is now rooted in the present, in the strength of its people and their determination to rebuild from the ground up. The city's layout has changed. The streets are now narrower, more intimate, and the once mighty walls have been replaced by smaller, more functional barriers. The temples and palaces that once symbolized the gods' favor have been replaced by humble homes and communal spaces where the people of Babylon work together to survive. There are no grand structures here, no monuments to kings or gods. Instead, the city has become a reflection of its people, practical and resilient. You find yourself sitting in a small communal space, surrounded by a group of people who have gathered to share food and stories. The food is simple, but it is enough. The air is filled with the smell of freshly baked bread, roasted vegetables, and the warmth of the fire. There is laughter, too, a quiet, joyful sound that seems out of place in a city that has known so much destruction. But the people of Babylon are not defeated. They have learned to live with their losses and to find joy in the small things. The gods may have turned away, but the people have not turned away from each other. As you sit with them, you realize that this is what Babylon truly is. A community, a family, a group of people who have faced the worst and chosen to rise above it. Babylon may have fallen, but it has not been forgotten. It lives on in the hearts and minds of those who remain, in the stories they tell and the lives they build together. Historians will tell the story of Babylon's rise and fall for centuries to come. They will write about its glory, its kings, its gods, and its eventual collapse. But the true story of Babylon is not found in the pages of history. It is found in the lives of its people, the ones who lived through its rise and its fall, the ones who refused to give up, even when everything seemed lost. Babylon may never be the same, but its legacy will endure. Not in its monuments, not in its temples, but in the hearts of the people who continue to rebuild, to live, and to hope. The seasons change as they always do. The rains come and go, the winds shift, and the sun rises and sets over Babylon, casting its warm light over the city that has risen from the ashes. The floodwaters are a memory now, replaced by the steady pulse of life. The people of Babylon have found their rhythm once more, and the city, though different, is alive with the quiet hum of progress. The children you once saw playing in the streets are growing up now, their laughter still ringing in the air, though it is now tempered by the weight of experience. They will be the ones to carry Babylon forward, to shape its future in ways that the old city could never have imagined. Babylon may not have the gods or the grandeur it once did, but it has something more powerful. The will of its people, the strength of its community, and the resilience to rebuild again and again. You stand at the edge of the city looking out at the horizon, and for the first time in a long while you feel a sense of peace. Babylon's story is not over. It will never truly be over because the spirit of the city lives on in those who carry it forward. The gods may have turned away, but the people have not. The future of Babylon is uncertain as it always has been. But one thing is clear. The people of Babylon will face whatever comes next with the same quiet strength that has carried them through their darkest days. They will rebuild, they will grow, and they will continue to tell the story of their city, not as a tale of gods and kings, but as a story of people who refused to give up no matter the cost. And in that, Babylon lives on. The sun sets on Babylon, casting long shadows over the city that once ruled the world. The sky is painted in shades of orange and pink, the colors of a fading day. The streets are quiet now, the work of the day done, but the city is still alive. There is no grand fanfare, no victory parade. There is only the quiet hum of life, of people working, living, and loving despite the odds. You sit in a small courtyard, surrounded by the quiet sounds of evening. The city is still, but there is a warmth in the air, a sense of peace that has settled over Babylon. The gods may have left, the ziggurats may be in ruins, but Babylon is not dead. It is different, yes, but it is not gone. The heart of the city is still beating, and it will continue to beat for as long as the people remain. You look up at the sky, the first stars beginning to appear. The gods may have abandoned Babylon, but the city will continue, its legacy carried on by the people who remain. They will rebuild, they will thrive, and they will remember the lessons of the past, even as they forge a new future. And so Babylon's story comes to a close, not with a grand flourish, but with the quiet, steady beat of life continuing. A city that has known both greatness and ruin, but which lives on in the hearts of those who call it home. Babylon may have fallen, but it will never be forgotten.